Yo, what is up, guys? You got Kotab here, and in this video I'm going to be doing a quick little overview of how exactly the Crew 2's parts systems work, how you upgrade your cars, what the parts do, and what are those bonuses, and which ones are potentially the best ones. So if any of that interests you, stay tuned, because we're going to be going over a lot of information that I've gathered, and hopefully it'll be useful to you guys. So first things first, when you get a car, you have these 7 different kinds of parts that you could put on it. There's brakes, gearbox, ECU, motor core, exhaust, suspension, and tires. Now this works really similar to the way that it did in the Crew 1, where all these parts have a level associated with them, as well as a color tier associated with them, as well as a bonus associated with each individual part. So each part has basically 3 different things that are impacting its performance. As you can see in here, 280 is the highest the street racing cars will go. Obviously the other specs will have different performance indexes, and depending on what type of vehicle it is. So first things first, the numbers are really going to be your main thing. Obviously you want the highest level number that you can get. If you have a green part that, or let's say for example, I wonder if I can find one in here. Here's a good example. Let's say for example you have this part that's 270 that has these 2 bonuses on it, and it's pink. This part will almost always be worse than a green part that is level 280. Obviously you want the highest level that you could possibly get. Now sometimes that might always be the case. Maybe a lower level part with the specific bonus will be a little bit stronger, but in general you're going to want to go with the highest level parts that you have available, because that's what increases your raw stats. So what do the color bonuses do, you might ask? Well, the color bonuses are interesting. There are 4 different kinds of color bonuses. There is gray, there is green, there is blue, and there is pink. I believe the only gray parts that you have are the stock parts. So for all intents and purposes, there's green, blue, and pink. Green is your lowest level. I don't even know if I have any here in my list that I can show you. Probably not, but that's okay. We could switch to a different vehicle so I could take a look. Let's look at my buggy here. Here we go. Here's a green part. Now as you can see, the green parts are a little bit different than the blue parts. As you can see, they don't have a bonus on the top left associated with them, so they are basically the worst parts. Blues are going to be your next best because they have 1 bonus associated with them, and the pinks are going to be your best as they have 2. Now obviously sometimes a part with 2 bonuses, one of the bonuses might not be as good as a blue that has 1 bonus. For example, if you have a pink that increases your followers and gives you like a 1.5 times nitros boost, the nitrous boost is nice, but the followers isn't really that important for your late game. So in a competitive racing area, that's obviously not going to be something that you want. So a blue part that has maybe a 3% nitrous increase instead of the 1.5% from the pink part is going to be a little bit better. However, once you get playing into this game, you'll notice that the pink parts are not that hard to get, and the bonuses associated with them are almost always better than the blue parts. So pinks are going to be the way to go. Now what are these bonuses, you might ask? Now these bonuses work a lot differently than they did in the Crew 1. In the Crew 1, basically the part bonus gave you a bonus to a specific stat. Now the stat being speed, grip, braking, or acceleration. This game is a lot different. There's a lot more variations on the parts. So let's go back to one of my street cars here so you can see, because these are the ones that I have the most parts for. So each part has like a little icon that's associated with it and what it does. This little symbol here increases your slipstream. whereas something like that increases your avoid tolerance. Now you might notice in the crew sometimes when you run into like a small tree or a fence or a lamppost that can't be knocked down, sometimes if you're going fast enough you'll just kind of go around it. You'll run right into it, but the game will kind of like push you to the side and let you go around it. It's really weird how it does this, but apparently this is an intended mechanic because they have bonuses on them in the crew too. Now this could be pretty decent for certain specs of cars. For the off-road vehicles the off-road vehicles specifically are going to be taking the most advantage of this because they're going to be running through trees and stuff like that. However, something like this isn't really that useful. There's some parts that you would most definitely rather have. If you can avoid running into trees, this is basically useless. And then we have obviously the increased slipstream power, and each one of these parts is different. You might notice that it says 4.3%. Now every blue with this bonus on it will not all be 4.3%. Some of them will be 5%, some of them will be 2%. It all just depends on the luck of the roll that you get. So there's ones that increase followers. There's Collector, which increases lives rewards frequency, which basically means that every now and then there will be loot boxes that spawn around the map, and your HUD will start to blink and beep the closer you get to them, and when you find them you can get more parts. Each one of these big loot crates has a color associated with them, from green to blue to pink, and obviously the parts that are inside are dependent on the color of the crate. So this collector increases the likelihood of those respawning. Now I've noticed that those things respawn in the same locations. It's just they're on they seem to be like on a random timer. So this will probably increase the likelihood of them respawning when you're in the general area. The one that you see on to the right there is increases nitrous power by 21.9% while in use. So the more you use your nitrous, the stronger your nitrous is going to get. However, if you just use like a quarter of your NOS and then let off the button, that bonus will get reset until the next time you hit the NOS. So to get the most benefit out of that, you're going to want to use your entire tank of nitrous, because then by the end of the tank it'll already be a couple seconds, and that 21.9% increase will keep going up until your tank is empty. So that's a pretty good part. The slipstream increase is also a very good part. There's also these ones which increase the loot quality from the events, and I assume from the crates that you get as well. But I'm not 100% sure on the crates part, so I'm not going to say for certain, but I assume that it works that way. It says of loot, it doesn't say specifically what loot. There's also Bulldozer, which increases collision impact force by 5%. I don't like this part being in the game at all. What this says to me is this promotes ramming, and ramming is not a good mechanic, or a good strategy I should say, in any racing game. It's more or less just annoying, and if you intentionally ram people, you should probably deserve to get your toes cut off and, you know, force fed down your throat. Meanwhile, you have to watch your parents being murdered by a werewolf. I think that's pretty fair. If you ram, I think that's a pretty fair punishment. I'm pretty sure the U.S. government is planning on making that a law pretty soon, which is pretty cool. Obviously I'm being facetious, but ramming is stupid. There's this one, which also increases slipstream distance, which means that the farther you are away from a car, the farther you are away from the car in front of you, you'll still be able to pick up on their slipstream for a longer distance, meaning that you could catch up a lot quicker. There's also ventilated, which refills your nitrous during a jump. There's a whole bunch of them. There's some that increase your nitrous while drifting, there's some that increase your nitrous while jumping, there's some that increase your nitrous while braking. I found the ones that are braking to be the best, because you're going to want to try to avoid jumping, because jumps slow you down, obviously. and drifting also slows you down. So the increased nitrous while braking seems to be a really good perk. Now here you see another one called Muddy, which decreases off-road bumps and deacceleration by 4.2%. Now I said on my stream the other day that I think this perk is going to be a, if not a top tier, a pretty good perk to have, because in the crew, at least in the first one, and it seems to be the case in the second one, there's a lot of shortcuts that you can take, and some of these shortcuts involve you going off-road. So something like this means that you can cut corners easier. It means that curbs on the sides of roads won't affect you as much. It means that you could take shortcuts a lot better. So it is kind of situational depending on the track, but if you know that there's a track coming up in the PvP lobby that that has some off-road cuts, you could pick a car that has some muddy parts on it, and you'll benefit from that. So I think that's pretty interesting. There's also ones that increase the amount of bucks that you get, and this is how I've been money farming. I have these rich bonuses on every single part on my Lamborghini, and I just have been using that to get basically an extra like $4 grand each race. It's fantastic. There's Sensor, which increases radar range to detect live rewards by by however much percent. The live rewards are the loot crates that I was talking about earlier. With this, basically, you'll be able to detect them from farther away. It's not really that useful, but I guess if you're running around farming these things, a car with this, with that perk would be beneficial. So there's also this one here, the skilled perk, which increases scoring by 6.7%. I don't know if this gives you more points for doing skills. Like while you're doing this skill, you get more points. For example, let's say you do a speed skill and you get 100 points, and then you attach this perk. The next time you do it, if you do exactly the same thing, you'll get 106 points. I think that's how that works, but I'm not 100% sure. Basically, for racing, a lot of these are going to be pretty useless. The ones that you're going to be looking for are the ones that increase your nitrous and your slipstream. Those are going to be the ones, and muddy, of course, if you want to go that route. Extra pump are very nice, which those increase your slipstreams. They increase your nitrous refill speed, which is always great because the more nitrous, the more better. I've noticed that in this game, and it's very similar to Need for Speed Payback, where the nitrous bonuses are top tier. This is for a pretty simple fact. A lot of people, or at least beginners, don't assume nitrous to be that important of a stat to increase, but it actually is. In a game like this where your nitrous refills, your nitrous can be the difference between winning a race and losing a race. It's extremely important. Nitrous acts independently from your other stats. So you can have terrible stats but have really good nitrous and make up for it. So any part that associates with nitrous refill, nitrous power, anything like that is going to be something that you want. So obviously something like that's going to be a main priority for when you're attaching parts. You saw there that that increases slipstream distance. There's a couple more. Increase speed while ahead of a vehicle by 5%. I'm not quite sure how this works, because if you're ahead of a vehicle, what does that mean? Does that mean if you're ahead of everyone, or does that mean if you're in first place, that 5.4% is added on for each person that you're ahead of? And also this kind of confuses me, because I feel like this is basically like what this does is add a slipstream to your car while you're not behind someone. This seems like a part that, depending on how it works, could be potentially very good. But I just don't have the time or the resources to to study all these parts in depth. I'm just letting you know what they do, what their description is, and what I think about them. So, sorry I don't have like in-depth details on these parts yet, but it's just I don't have the time or resources to actually test all these things. So this seems like something that could be important. There's also that part there which or no, never mind. That's not the part that I thought it was. There is a part that increases the drag bump, which is, I assume, has something to do with just your overall drag. In my honest opinion, what I think these parts here do is it's probably increased aerodynamics. I think that's their fancy way of saying, especially with the way that the icon looks, it looks like the arrow is supposed to be your car and it's splitting the air better. So I assume that something like this is either it just applies a slipstream like bonus onto your car, or it increases your aerodynamics / increases drag, however you want to view it. So, excuse me, there is that one that increases during a jump, and yeah, that's pretty much it. There's quite a few parts. There's a lot of them that have to do with the nitrous and the slipstream. So, oops. Let's check out this one here. See what... Oops. Okay. I don't like how that glitch happens. If I hit the pad too quickly, it goes to the map. So what car were we on? We were on the Camaro, correct? Yes. I just wanted to look at this last part here. Increase slipstream power, increase speed while ahead of a vehicle. Yeah, so I don't have one that actually says, I don't exactly remember what it says. It says increase drag bump distance by a certain percent, which doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So if you guys know what that means, let me know. I'm obviously just completely oblivious or ignorant to these definitions or to these terms. So if you guys could, you know, correct me on anything that I might have wrong in this video, let me know. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, when it comes down to it, my recommendation would be basically stack all parts onto nitrous. Nitrous refill, nitrous power duration, increase nitrous power by X% per second. Those ones seem to be the most worth it to me. The muddy and the slipstream could also be potentially very good. So if you get slipstream or muddy on with a nitrous boosting part, that's going to be your best way to go. Or if you can get lucky and get a part that does double nitrous boosting. So thank you for watching, guys. I hope I explained everything good enough for you guys to get, and I hope you guys learned something and this was useful. So if it was, leave a like, subscribe to see more. I'm going to be having a ton of testing videos with all of these street spec cars that I have here, plus more to come. I'm going to wait till the end of the beta, just so that way I have the most amount of time to test them, and most amount of time to test them, and less time that I am making a video. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, I will see you guys later.